The bar went silent as fabric tore. A biker's cruel laughter echoed. He thought he'd humiliated her. But when the black woman's shirt fell, the room froze. Ink across her skin revealed a symbol that carried more weight than fists, more power than fear. And in that moment, everyone realized, the predator had just picked the wrong prey. The night had started like any other in Rusty Jack's Roadhouse, a bar where leather jackets outnumbered polite smiles, and respect was something you fought for, not asked. The regulars were loud, their laughter sharp, their boots heavy against the wooden floorboards. Outsiders didn't last long here. And yet, that night, an outsider had walked in. Her name was Maya. She wasn't dressed like the others. No chains, no patches, no heavy boots. Just a plain black shirt, jeans, and a quiet confidence that made her presence feel even more unusual. Most people would have kept their head down, ordered a drink, and slipped out before trouble found them. But Maya wasn't most people. At first, the bikers didn't notice her. They were too busy swapping stories of rides gone wrong and fights won too easily. But the more Maya stayed calm, the more she stood out. A lone woman in a sea of rough men always drew attention, and soon eyes began to follow her every move. She ordered water. Not whiskey. Not beer. Just water. And that, in a place like this, was an invitation for ridicule. "Look at that," one of the bikers sneered, his beard thick and his arms covered in tattoos. "Sweetheart thinks this is a coffee shop." The laughter that followed was loud, sharp, and designed to make her flinch. But Maya didn't. She simply took her glass, sipped slowly and looked at them, not with fear, not with defiance, but with a kind of measured calm that only made them angrier. That's when Hawk stepped in. Hawk was no ordinary biker. He was one of the leaders of the local gang, a man whose reputation stretched farther than the highway he ruled. He'd been in fights that broke bones, stared down cops without blinking, and carried himself with the kind of arrogance that only came from knowing nobody dared to challenge him. And now Hawk had his eyes set on Maya. He swaggered toward her table, his boots thudding like war drums, and leaned in so close the smell of beer clung to the air between them. "You lost, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice dripping with mockery. "This ain't the place for your kind." Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than words. The bar quieted, sensing the tension. Fights were entertainment, but this was different. This was Hawk choosing a target, and nobody crossed him. Then, with one swift motion, Hawk grabbed at her shirt and tore it down the middle, laughter already bubbling in his throat. But the laughter died before it left his mouth. Because beneath that shirt was a tattoo, a symbol so sharp, so unmistakable that the entire bar froze. "And Maya?" She finally spoke. "Do you recognize this?" she asked softly. The symbol stretched across Maya's collarbone like fire carved into flesh. It wasn't decorative ink, nor some random piece of art. It was precise, etched in dark lines that told a story most people in that bar wished they'd never heard. It was the insignia of the Iron Vultures, a gang more feared than Hawk's own. A gang that didn't forgive, didn't forget, and didn't ever let one of their own walk unprotected. For a moment, silence blanketed the bar. Hawk's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing as if he couldn't trust what he was seeing. "That can't be real," he muttered, his voice low, but the tremor betrayed him. Maya tilted her head slightly, almost amused. "Oh, it's real. And you just made the worst mistake of your life." The crowd of bikers shifted uncomfortably. Some leaned forward, squinting at the tattoo. Others exchanged wary glances. Everyone in that room knew the Iron Vultures didn't brand people lightly. That tattoo wasn't ink. It was a mark of allegiance, protection, and blood. The tension was thick, but Hawk tried to laugh it off, forcing bravado into his tone. "You expect me to believe you ride with them? A little thing like you?" Maya set down her half-empty glass of water, her hand steady. "Believe what you want. But if word gets out about this," she paused, letting her words sink in, "you'll have more than me to deal with." The jukebox clicked to silence, its last song cut off mid-chord. It was as if the bar itself was holding its breath. One of Hawk's own men, a younger biker named Reno, leaned in close and whispered urgently. "Boss, I've seen that mark before. Only their bloodline carries it. If she's inked with it, she ain't bluffing." Hawk's jaw tightened. He didn't like being doubted, especially not by his own crew. But the unease in his men's faces was unmistakable. They weren't afraid of him in this moment. They were afraid of her. Maya leaned back in her chair, calm, collected. "Funny thing about tattoos," she said quietly. "They tell stories, stories you can't erase. And mine? Mine says you've just crossed the wrong family." The word family struck deeper than she expected. In biker culture, bloodlines and loyalty were everything. And if Maya was indeed tied to the iron vultures by blood, then disrespecting her was the same as signing a death warrant. Still, Hawk couldn't back down. Not in front of his men. His pride wouldn't let him. He slammed his fist on the table, making glasses rattle. I don't care whose mark you wear. This is my house. And in my house you don't scare me. But his voice betrayed him. It wavered, thin and unconvincing. Maya smiled faintly, almost pitying him. Then maybe you should ask yourself why they put this mark on me. The bar erupted into hushed murmurs. Some of Hawk's men stepped back, wanting no part of what was coming. Others waited, curious to see how far their leader would push his luck. Hawk's hand twitched at his side, itching for a fight, but deep down he knew the truth. The symbol on Maya's skin carried more weight than his fists ever could. And for the first time in a long time, Hawk looked like the one cornered. The bar was silent, but tension screamed through the air. Hawk stood stiff, trying to mask his unease, but his men could see it. His dominance was crumbling, and Maya hadn't even raised her voice. She didn't need to. Maya rose slowly from her chair, every movement deliberate, graceful, controlled. The room seemed smaller with her standing. Though she wasn't physically imposing, her presence towered over Hawk. Her eyes locked onto his, unwavering. You've spent your life throwing your weight around. But real power doesn't come from fear, Hawk. It comes from respect. And you? You've never earned it. Those words cut deeper than any blade. Hawk's crew shifted, murmuring amongst themselves. Respect was sacred in their world, and hearing it dismissed so casually stung worse than humiliation. Hawk tried to step closer, but for once his men didn't follow. Instead, they watched him as if silently judging. Maya pulled her jacket back over her shoulders, covering the tattoo once again. You thought tearing my shirt would strip me of dignity. But all you did was expose your weakness. The bar patrons, once spectators, now stared at Hawk like vultures circling prey. They'd seen the shift. The balance of power had tipped. Reno, the young biker who'd spoken up earlier, suddenly stepped forward. Boss, maybe let it go. His voice was steady, not a plea but a suggestion with weight. Hawk's face flushed with rage. You siding with her? But even as he barked, his voice rang hollow. Maya leaned in slightly, close enough for only him to hear. If word gets out about tonight, you won't just lose face, you'll lose everything. They'll see you as weak. They'll smell blood. And when that happens, not even your own brothers will stand beside you. Hawk's nostrils flared, his fists clenched. For a split second, it looked like he might strike her. But the stares of his men pinned him in place. The fight was gone before it began. With a sharp exhale, Hawk turned his back, waving his hand dismissively. Get out of here. All of you. Night's over. The bar slowly emptied, murmurs trailing behind. Hawk's men left without loyalty, without respect, their eyes cold. The empire he built on fear was crumbling, and everyone knew it. Maya, however, didn't rush. She sipped the last of her water, calm as ever, then set the glass down with a soft clink. As she walked toward the door, Reno stopped her briefly. That tattoo, you really with them? Maya gave the faintest smile. Let's just say, family isn't always about who you ride with. Sometimes it's about what you carry inside. Then she stepped into the night, the door swinging shut behind her. Inside, Hawk stood alone, stripped of his throne in front of the very men who once feared him. Outside, Maya breathed deeply under the cool night air. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a symbol. Sometimes power isn't about muscle, threats, or even numbers. Real strength lies in what you carry within, your history, your dignity, and the truth that no one can strip away. If this story gave you chills, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe, share it with someone who believes in standing tall against injustice, and join our community where every underdog's voice becomes unstoppable. Because sometimes the smallest story carries the loudest truth.